Hello once again. This next story is called Midnight of the Lost and Found. It is basically when I was living in Japan, I studied Zen Buddhism, and a lot of the whole thing about Buddhism is to achieve a certain state of being called enlightenment or satori. Enlightenment is not too sure. No one's really sure what it is. Is it you get to know God, or get to know all the answers, but the goal of every single Buddhist in the world is to try and find enlightenment. And that fascinated me because not many people do. And not many people know exactly what enlightenment really is. But anyway, this fascinated me very much. And this is a story about a man who found enlightenment, but didn't find it through scripture, didn't find it through storybooks, didn't find it through a temple or a priest, or studied the mantras or the sutras or whatever they do. Is he found it with a whale out at sea. So, this story is called Midnight at the Lost and Found. Enjoy.
I reckon that one of the seven wonders of the world, even though it is unacknowledged, is the Milky Way, seen from the middle of the ocean. Not only is it so bright that it lights up the water, but it's so clear that I swear I could see galaxies that are only paid for by expensive telescopes or years of university. Anyway, going by my calculation and the softly glowing face of my watch, the ship left me about 8 hours ago. More or less roughly as the day started to exit stage right, to be replaced by night entering stage left. Where she is now, I have no idea. She's probably coming to rest miles down. And I don't want to think of my fellow shipmates trapped inside. God knows how I reached this life raft. That looks more like a Boy Scout tent. But reach it I did. And paddling away, furiously I beheld the bellowing roar as the ship left us. Like the ship was bemoaning its fate, as everything that was not tied down fell forward. The tilting, descending old lady sliding slowly and purposely down into the dark depths. By the looks of it, I was the only survivor, alone, in 700,000 kilometers of salty Indian water and the billions of light years of sky. The light of the special homing beacon attached to the top of this plastic island blinked on and off, while sending signals to satellites circling far overhead, above me, so telling them that I am here. And even now I saw a star moving slowly above me, and I imagine that metallic star receiving the signal, getting to process it, and sending it worldwide to ships, boats, and countries everywhere. Heck, the closest I shall ever get to being famous, I guess. I scanned the dark, but saw no sign of ships, no lights, and no aircraft. I was alone in the huge dark expanse of the ocean. The water lapped at the sides of my plastic world, starting to lull me into a state of calm, replacing the dull shock of the sudden loss of thousands of tons of steel and the continuance of about 65 kilograms of living tissue, which is me, in a plastic orange tent. The ocean was flat, and it was midnight. There was no dividing line between water and horizon, just an incredible light show above me, as stars, planets, moons circled slowly above me. Moons were civilizations yet unknown, and unencumbered by our need to light up the dark as much as possible, with argon, gas neon tubes, light bulbs, and searchlights, as if to allay our prehistoric fears of the dark. I glanced at the tiny food locker next to me. At least I wouldn't starve just yet. I lay forward under a tropical night, with my arms hanging over the edge, and into the water, and my mind began to wander. We call this planet Earth, which is funny really, because in reality it should be called ocean. Most of the planet's surface is covered in it, and we are 95% composed of water. It has given rise to great tales of bravery and suspense. It is a profoundly spiritual environment with creatures that defy the imagination. You could walk and stand up inside the heart of a blue whale, yet it feeds off plankton, a tiny little speck of floating life. Deep in the dark depths, the giant squid is yet unknown, and it has 3 hearts and blue blood, yet it has a parrot's beak. Of dolphins, those humans of the sea, with their smiles and intelligence. Sound travels faster in water, and whales could communicate through thousands of miles to each other, searching for companionship, abruptly curtailed when we fired harpoons fitted with grenades into their lungs. Their call went down in frequency to travel further, the answer they yearned for that never came back. Their possible mates, male and female, were most likely dead, killed for the whaling trade. We have since curtailed this genocide, and their numbers are increasing, as is their trust. I thought about how we, in our infinite wisdom, decided to go nuclear. And I just thought about how we blew up islands with stupid bombs with stupid names like Fat Boy and Fat Slim, blowing up islands, blowing up cities. As if to somehow lighten the dread we must have all been feeling, and how that acoustic scream must have deafened and shocked the sensitive hearing and navigation systems of all ocean life worldwide. I thought about the USS Indianapolis, the ship that carried the first nuclear bomb that ended the war. The ship being torpedoed by a Japanese sub and sinking fast. Over 1,000 survivors in the water, all alone at night in the middle of the ocean. All those men, some stained with oil in the water. It was night and it was pitch dark. When, like finned double ninjas, the sharks arrived. Now, the oceanic whitetip is one of the most feared and aggressive species of the shark family, beating even the great white in savagery. However, this shark is mainly found in deep ocean, exactly where these men find themselves now. One by one, as they huddled together, these finned assassins came in and started to feed. Splashing the water, which, contrary to their misguided training, actually attracted and excited the sharks, and they were picked off to be torn apart one by one under a black starry sky. No one knew they were there, as the bomb mission was highly top secret, and it was only by a twist of luck that a spotter plane did its job, saw who was left, and slowly this hell came to an end. Even now the survivors struggle to talk about this, and with a shudder that was not from the cold, I hastily withdrew my arms from the water. How did I get here? How did I get here in all this crazy situation I find myself in? A short while ago, I decided to totally escape the goon show that we call society. So chucking in my 9-to-5 purgatory, I made a decision to leave altogether, to travel to India, find a monastery, gain enlightenment, and try and make the universe manageable. Society with its woke culture, jihadis, bank accounts, and worthless celebrities just repelled me. The same society that I am now depending on to actually find me, to actually know where I am. There I was trying to escape them, but now I really need them to help me live. I was thinking of this when suddenly a low groan echoed from the water beneath me, and whoosh, like a boiler letting off steam, I was deafened by an exhalation of breath not even a few feet away. My raft then bumped into an island, a living island. An island made of flesh, a whale. Grabbing my torch and suddenly feeling very scared, I shone my light into a horizontal grey wall of flesh and into the eye of God. There are certain species of fish and animal that somehow exude an intelligence and awareness that is superior to ours. And that gift shows in the eyes of the orangutan, elephants, and whales being prime example. This is a huge, round, heavy-lidded orb that stared at me now. Suddenly I felt relieved yet under scrutiny, and a profound sense of being enveloped me. Suddenly I reached out, and my hand made contact with the smooth skin. Man and whale touching on a deeper level, communicating and communicating. Hours passed, and suddenly I found myself telling this huge giant everything that had happened to me. The whale told me a few stories, and sometime during the conversation, I noticed dawn was breaking on the horizon. The whale sank from view, and yet somehow I could sense it was there, and it would not leave me. Suddenly the fatigue, shock, and unreality of what had happened to me hit me like an avalanche, and tiredness hit me so hard I scurried back to my rubber boat, my rubber hotel, and fell into a long, dreamless sleep. The daylight over the horizon came slowly and moved on into morning, then afternoon, as a tiny orange blob floated in the universal expanse of the never-ending ocean. Evening came, and the moon rose up across the water, shining on this tiny, tiny little orange blob floating in its huge expanse, a human, like a fetus in an orange womb, fast asleep inside. Whoosh, once again I hope with a start, and that same deep groan echoed throughout my world. My cetacean friend was back. My whale friend was back. Opening the flap, I looked directly into the eye of my companion. It was dark, and the sun was just bathing farewell over the horizon. I reached out and touched his smooth skin, and almost immediately a low note echoed from deep inside him as if murmuring a greeting. I checked the homing beacon mounted on the roof of my little cathedral, and yes, it was still flashing its tiny red light, sending a location call to satellites far above me. I checked my food supply before checking water and basic provisions like vitamin tablets, layer of waterproof clothing, etc. Yep, all there. So for the moment I was okay. The Milky Way was a light show above me, being reflected in the still ocean around me. The whale was only a few meters away, keeping station with me, though for whatever reason I could not fathom. Once again with a geyser of cloud he took a breath, and slowly he dived under my raft to disappear and then appear on the other side, rolling slowly to his left to peer at me. I thought about the famous gloop sound that shocked scientists worldwide, apparently made by an animal that is unknown, undiscovered and very, very large. So did this whale know it? And what was it? I mean, mysteries abound in the ocean along with tragedy. I thought about a young warship commander in the Second World War. And after being torpedoed in his warship, the same young commander dragging a wounded sailor to an island with his teeth, and though injured himself, saved many, many others. That same young man reached the pinnacle of his life by becoming the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. I thought about that sunny day downtown Dallas, festive crowds cheering, gorgeous wife waving, then 3 shots, arms up, clutching, then darkness descending as the final shot made the nightmare come full circle. Removed from this earth by a cold water dropout, equipped with a cheap rifle and hate. With a shudder that was not from the cold again, I perceived a splash not far away. I looked over at the whale, but he was still with me, unconcerned, maybe a tuna, maybe a squid or something. My mind wandered, and I thought about one of my obsessions as a young boy. The Waratah was a luxury ocean liner, built for the Blue Anchor Line, and she was a pride of the fleet. She sailed from Australia to South Africa in 1909, with calls at Durban, then Cape Town. However, whilst at sea, a passenger named Mr. Sawyer started to have disturbing dreams. In them he saw a figure rising from the stormy sea in armour and holding a blood-stained rag, screaming "Waratah, Waratah" over and over again. So disturbed was he by this apparition that he disembarked in Durban and tried to persuade other passengers to do the same. The ship sailed that night, and on the way she passed another steamer, also en route to Cape Town, and exchanged signals. Later that night, the lookout on the steamer that the Waratah had passed swore he saw a glow on the horizon and the dim outline of a decrepit 4-masted sailing ship, the Flying Dutchman. Now, the Flying Dutchman is a legend of the sea that depicts a skipper of a sailing ship cursing God for being unable to cross the Cape Horn due to bad weather. Now, God cursed him right back by sentencing him to try around the Cape for eternity. To this day, this ghostly apparition is sometimes seen and sometimes sighted when a major disaster occurs. However, he thought it was a bit strange, the man who saw that flash, but then he deduced it might have been a lightning flash as the weather was turning for the worst. The Waratah was never seen again. No wreckage was even found. A ship report is sighting a dead girl in a red dress floating in the distance, and a man was apparently found insane on a beach, walking aimlessly and muttering, "Waratah, Waratah," over and over. She remains a mystery to this day. I remember a book called The Titan, about a luxury liner that set sail for New York on her maiden voyage. Triple screw, 4 funnels, and not enough lifeboats. On her way, after receiving numerous ice warnings, she struck an iceberg on her starboard side and sunk. This book was published in 1909, 3 years before the Titanic even sailed. Indeed, the sea is a mysterious place. Once again, the whale surfaced with a whoosh next to me, and suddenly I was gripped by a massive desire to get in the water with him. So under a moonlit night, I slipped the safety harness off my ankle that tethered me to the raft and gently slipped into the water. He was scarcely a few meters away, so abandoning all restraint, I just swam over to where he was waiting and embraced his barnacle-encrusted body of life. I heard the deep rumble emanated from deep inside him, and slowly he turned over onto his side. A huge flipper the size of a canoe rose into the air as I playfully scrambled on top of it. I scrambled down to the water and onto his side like a playful dog. A wild feeling of happiness and joy burst inside of me. all alone under a moonlit night in the middle of the ocean, hugging a whale with him rumbling in contempt. Companionship alone together in a remote place on this beautiful jewel of a planet. I thought just how a week or so previously I was chained to my computer, running to finish the schedule so some little jackass of a manager wouldn't throw his toys out the pram, making someone else rich while I struggled to pay my taxes. All around, horns blaring, angry faces, road rage, trolley rage, pavement rage, rage. It was killing me. And now here I was, having an experience that surely God must have designed in heaven. Lying on that boat and in that water with that whale. Suddenly, I hugged this whale, apologized to it, apologized about how we are destroying its only home. I apologized about the wars, the harpoons, the hate, the nuclear blast that he surely must have felt, about the loneliness of his species as they searched for a mate that was at the time being made into piano keys, or figurines of useless gods that we kill for, or useless expensive perfume via the whaling trade. To my surprise, I realized I was not only talking out loud, but crying. My salty tears rushed in the salty water as well. And it was slowly and surely falling onto his skin. Suddenly I felt a rush of love, of understanding and forgiveness rush over me, as another low hum echoed below me. Yet this one was different. A telepathic hug, an acknowledgement of my pain, and most profoundly, a measured response delivered with love from a brain and intelligence far superior to ours. In Buddhism, it is called enlightenment, a stage of blissful comprehension. The Buddha discovered it under a tree, and is the goal of all Buddhists worldwide, with only a few actually achieving it. Indeed, I was on my way to a Buddhist retreat to escape this life and just meditate on existence. Enlightenment was not my goal, as people vastly more learned and dedicated than me were dedicated to that state of being. But by God, I knew I had it. Not in a temple, not under a master with years of training, but with a whale under an open ocean. With a whale, one of the biggest animals in the world. It was like a third eye opening, and a blast of understanding rushed through, mixed with a generous portion of love. I exulted and yelled a shout of pure elation into the sky and dived into the water, swam around to the front of the whale, and looked into his eyes. Which was just beneath the surface. Moonlight suddenly reflected into this grey orb that looked back at me with an old man's all-knowing gaze, and the telepathic blast hit me. This animal was already enlightened. It was already enlightened. It was their natural state of being, and it was us who had closed this venue. And it was us who had cloned this road. It was us who had cloned this avenue, and walked away, seduced by wealth, power, and fast food pleasures. It was us who have rewired our brains to gather material things that we leave behind anyway at death. And it was us who are destroying this planet to gain those fleeting emotions that rule us. I started talking, no babbling, as being towed through the water slowly by the whale, my life raft starting to bobbing behind us, tethered to my ankle. My life came out in words. Happiness filled my being as all my doubts, insecurities, and frustrations came out. I was sitting on his huge back, and I spoke to the whale as a friend, confidant, and teacher. I felt like a death penalty prisoner suddenly being given a reprieve and exhilarating views of freedom. After a while, I jumped off the whale's back and, laughing happily, splashed the ocean like a child in a paddling pool. Then suddenly a deep, hollow infrasound filled me up, and the whale was communicating me via infrasound, a frequency the human ear cannot perceive, and this bass drum of love just filled me. All of a sudden, with a great splash, his huge tail rose out of the water, reflecting the moonlight, and he was gone. I tread water for a while, then climb back into my tiny life raft, full of a speechless wonder at the change of my spirit. Call it nirvana, satori, enlightenment, whatever it was, I had it. My heart was singing. I no longer needed to escape. I had escaped. No longer needed the monastery. No longer needed anything. The whale had given me the universe. Swimming back to my raft, I suddenly perceived what looked like a star that had fallen into the water, far away on the horizon, but was too overjoyed to pay it much attention. I climbed back on board and almost immediately passed out. A huge shrill of sound propelled me out of my sleep. It was daylight. I unzipped the flap of my tiny door and stared at a wall of steel. An orange lifeboat suddenly appeared on its starboard side as I gazed up at a towering white superstructure of a pleasure cruise liner with a garishly painted hull. My little beacon had summoned its behemoth to come and take me back to the world. Concerned faces lifted me out of my tiny little capsule, and I was surprised to see barnacles growing on the side and how faded the was on my tiny plastic island. I was also stunned to know I'd grown a full-length beard and also very skinny and wasted. And going by the crewman's later account to the press, I was starting to babble incoherently about whales, nirvana, etc. My world rapidly went from an orange canvas to a white medical room where, hooked up to intravenous lines and craving food, I took the long journey back to the world I had tried to escape from. Article in the newspaper of the New York Times. Yesterday, the lone survivor of a sinking of a cargo ship was found floating alone in a life raft approximately 400 miles in the Indian Ocean off the coast of India. He was emaciated and incoherent and close to starvation. Going by his condition and the condition of the life raft, he had been at sea for approximately 44 days since the sinking. However, his condition is improving, and he will no doubt be able to help with the investigation into this tragedy. Epilogue. 2 years later. A man stands alone on a beach, staring out to sea, with a dog, the rain pattering slowly and carefully on his umbrella. Behind him the city breathes with a whispering white noise, punctuated with the sound of shouts and horns. This man has a smile and a knowing, serene expression on his face. The hands in his pockets are relaxed, and the posture almost flowing with a vibrant kind of energy that is studied by mystics and sages alike. This man has a song in his heart, a song that is thousands of years old, a song that traverses the oceans and has given him what is yearned for by thousands of masters and pupils in temples and monasteries around the world. It is the song of the whale.